Hello again from Austin, Texas, where it is typically hotter than bacon grease during the day. We are in the Affair Recovery Studios. I'm so happy to be with you today. And today I want to talk to you about plateaus. It's kind of common when you've been in recovery and you've gained a little bit of momentum that you will eventually end up at a plateau. The problem is it scares the hell out of you. The reason a plateau is scary is, for starters, a plateau is typically an elevated place, right? It's a raised place, which means you've had to have done some work to get where you're at. A plateau is only possible after you've done some work, some heavy lifting, some grinding, some trekking up a hill, plowing through the weeds in your own mind and the difficulty associated with disclosure and trying to heal and forgive and trying to wrap your mind around this double life and trying to understand why did you make the choices that you've made. So it's not uncommon for a couple or even an individual that has tried to save their relationship, but it's not working or it didn't work, unfaithful or betrayed, and you hit a point of plateau in your own healing where you kind of say, is this all that there's ever going to be? Is this all that I'm going to experience in my healing? And I'm here to tell you today, no, this is not as good as it gets. This is not as far as you will go. Plateaus are that delicate but frustrating space between where you were and maybe even where you are and where you want to be as an individual, maybe in your own healing, in your own self-work, or as a couple where you think, man, I want to be so much more happier, so much more fulfilled. I want us to be so much more in sync with each other. And plateaus can be disorienting. They can be incredibly frustrating. And really, they can be revealing. It can reveal some weaknesses where you're at. It can reveal some disconnection or confusion. If you're just trying to work on you, it can reveal a lack of direction and a sense of darkness where you're like, how do I go to where I want to get? And we can feel lost. The good news is we control the narrative. And I'll just tell you personally, it took me a long time to buy into that, and it took me a long time to hone that skill. And what's powerful is we control our own narrative. So at this point, if you've hit this plateau, there's a point where you can say, look, this is actually a positive. I wouldn't have gotten to this point if I didn't do a lot of work. We wouldn't have actually gotten to this point if we didn't do so much work to get here. So you have to be careful that you don't shame yourself, that you don't treat yourself with this or your relationship with this kind of displeasure or devaluing, because if you give in to that, it becomes extremely disorienting. It can also be a positive because it reveals the fact that you actually have done some healing work. It can reveal the fact that, wait a minute, I wouldn't have experienced a plateau if I hadn't done some incremental growth. And maybe it was slower than I wanted, but you know what? I've been growing. I've been maturing. So this is actually a reward because I have done work, or we have done work. You have to remember, if you've hit a plateau, which I've hit a plateau in my own kind of working out, healthy, trying to adjust to my new age, trying to adjust to the way my body responds to food and drinks, and just, man, I hit a plateau and I've had to call in reinforcements. I've had to talk to some experts. I've had to kind of be vulnerable and say, look, I need some adjustments. It's the same thing in recovery work. There's a point where you say, look, what we're doing isn't working, and if we want to go to the next level, we've got to get experts who've conquered these plateaus time and time and time again. Okay, here's a few things you can do if you feel like you've hit a plateau, either by yourself or relationally. Number one, understand it's normal. Stop shaming it. If you keep shaming it, it's not going to be a place of growth. You're going to despise that place. You're going to despise where you're at, and then you won't be motivated to grow. But when you can say, okay, this is normal. This is a point where we can embrace the work that we've done and then start to find new vision, new help, new direction, new clarity, and new tools, which I'll come back to in a minute. Next is to understand, and I'll borrow a phrase from some corporate coaches as well as those that come from faith. This is a point where it's kind of like new levels bring new devils. That's not just a Christian saying or a religious saying, it's actually a corporate saying. I've had many corporate coaches say, look, when you're going to hit a new level in your company, you're going to have new devils that come your way. And in recovery work, when you hit a new level, when you come to a point where you're like, man, we've progressed, it's like, boom, new devils, boom, new complications, stuff that you thought you had healed from, stuff that you thought you would overcome. Maybe it's just a new layer of forgiveness as a betrayed that you're having to work through. That happens all the time, where you feel like, I thought I had forgiven this. Well, you had done some forgiveness, you had forgiven some things, but maybe it's a new layer of trauma that you're wrestling with that you didn't even know was there. If you're an unfaithful, you thought maybe, why am I thinking these thoughts? Why am I wrestling with this stuff? I have done so much work. Right. You're going to a new level of healing, of personal work, of conquering some old devils and stuff that you were wrestling with. And now, yes, you're stronger, which means you're strong enough to handle some things that you weren't strong enough to deal with months or years ago. Next is you cannot give in and you cannot give up. You've come too far. One of the worst things that you could do right now is say, we've worked so hard and now I'm just so frustrated, I want to give up. I get it. I understand it. I've been there. I'm there with my own personal health. But you know what? We've come too far. We've done too much work to give in, to throw in the towel and say, it's just too much. No, you probably may have said that at the very beginning and look how far you've come. So celebrate how far you've come, but realize you've come too far. You are worth too much as an individual, or your relationship is worth too much for you to give up and quit. Now, this is a time for realignment. This is a time for adjustment. This is a time to go to the next season of your own work and your relationships work with your head held high, saying, hey, I've graduated. It's harder, but I've graduated to a new level, and I'm willing to do that next level work. Next is what may have worked in the past might not work right now. Maybe some elementary things that carried you through might not be able to be used right now because the new devils, the new giants, the new war is a little bit more powerful than some of the things that were a bit elementary to get to you where you're at. Maybe it's time that you elevate your own game, you elevate your own work. Maybe it's developmental trauma like we've been talking about. Maybe it's stuff from when you were a child that is coming up. I don't know, but it's normal. I promise you, it's normal for this stuff to come up. But this is a time for you to use for fresh vision, fresh energy, fresh hope. My hope today, and I do come from faith, so my prayer today as I was driving in is, man, help me give them fresh vision, fresh hope, fresh courage to go back to war. Sometimes we feel like, I'm tired of fighting. I get it, but you'll never get healing if you're not willing to fight for it as an individual or as a couple. Maybe it's time to pick back up your sword, pick back up your weapons and say, okay, I'm ready to get back after it because look how much joy we've experienced from the work that we've done. How much more is there for us if we will get back to fighting together and not against each other? As always, if I or affairrecovery.com can help in any way, please reach out. You probably need help right now, and that's okay. This is an opportunity for you to move forward, stronger than you've ever been, more hopeful than you've ever been, more courageous than you've ever been. I'm honored to be on this journey with you.